right, guys, you already know it's a special treat when the guest is already on the screen. I'll even do the little surprise pop-up thing, right? Now, you guys have heard from Mr. Fred Van Lente very recently. We got a chance to chat at Heroes Con about his newest book, Vampyrates, which issue number 1 is out in stores right now. And I very much enjoyed it. So we're going to talk about it. Welcome, Mr. Fred Van Lente. How are you tonight, sir?
Very well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Doing well. I can't complain at all. Well, actually, I can complain about one thing. So we recorded a quick promo for Vampyrates at Heroes, and you explained a whole lot about the world and the character and everything that we should come to expect in this series. And somehow you undersold it, sir. I read this book and I was like not prepared for the layers and the depth in this. Well done, man. I really enjoyed this first issue.
Thank you very much. We're very proud of it.
So for those who maybe did not see the promo, because I put it in the middle of a pull list video, I figured instead of me reading through the solicit, I'll let Fred just talk about his book on the weekly comic book show. But for those who may have missed that, let's give a quick introduction to what Vampyrates is.
Yeah, it's the new comic series from Boom by me and Luca Pizzari. It's about swashbucklers and bloodsuckers in equal measures. It's set in the Night Isles, which is a world ruled by vampires under a 1,000-year eclipse, but they have like 18th century level technology. And in that world, the empress of that vampirium has to leave the throne and ends up accidentally stowing aboard a actual pirate ship run by a pirate captain who hates her. So it's, she's got to fight. She's basically started up here right at the vampirium, but now she ends up basically as a cabin girl. So she's got to fight her way up both in the ranks of piracy and also maybe get her throne back. It's a lot. It's a lot going on.
That's true. There is a lot going on. And, I guess I don't really want to spoil issue 1. Like, I want you guys to go and pick this book up to see for yourself. But I can tell you, as someone who's read this book, Fred's leaving a lot out of it. He's doing a great job of giving you the sort of log lines, but there's depth there. Specifically what stood out to me were sort of the manner of interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of time spent kind of building out different classes of people, and the way they interplay was very interesting to me. It was like, I don't know. I feel like everything you mentioned there, of course, is true, but then it also gives just a little bit of like Titanic vibes.
Okay. I like that. I like Titanic vibes.
Right. I like it too. So, yeah, but I thought that was really cool. Now, speaking of Vampyrates and what we talked about, we kind of honed in our little quick interview was sort of the all of the rigmarole that is involved with world building. Like when you are introducing us to a complete, not just, species, but a set of species, a hierarchy in the world, as it were, like how we decide or how you decide what is going to feature and when. Because I think if I had to give a unbiased review as if you were not in front of me, what I would say, right, like when issue 2 is up on the pull list, what I'll tell people is, hey, like there's a lot happening in this book to the point where I don't know if the first issue may hook you, just like the way it hooked me was kind of with some of the interpersonal dynamics that I wasn't expecting to see coming. But
well, not to give any spoilers, but I'm curious what 2 characters did you find yourself drawn to their relationship?
Yeah, so there's a sort of jilted love situation. Yes. You know, I guess a sort of forbidden love situation that's in the book. And I was like, huh, I did not see that dynamic coming. And it's a great vehicle to get us from where we are presently into the quest that we're going to have to go on. And, you know, who knows how that's going to shape up. But, well, you do. But I think looking at the issue as a whole, it felt like I don't quite know what this is. And then by the end of issue 1, I'm still like, I don't quite know what this is, but I'm down for the ride. And that to me feels almost like a risky move, but it also could just be like a feature of genre. Like I read superhero books, so it's very much, hey, here's our good guy, here's the bad guy, and here's a cliffhanger, right? But in this, it's like, here's our maybe good person, here's clearly someone standing in their way, and here is now a situation that they're in while we're unfolding this world that we may or may not understand.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And like, I think the most important part of it and the most challenging part of it is the when. You know, so many things, like we could go through the list of like pop culture truisms that didn't come from like the first episode, right? Like famously, like Jimmy Olsen and Kryptonite and Perry and a bunch of things. Perry White, I think, all came from the Superman radio show, right? They didn't come in the comics first. So just everything sort of comes downstream. And I think the problem, and I teach comics a lot too, so this crops up a lot. But the problem is people get trained to think they're writing Wikipedia articles of the story they haven't written yet, not the story that is hopefully good enough that people will want to write Wikipedia articles about it later, you know? So that's the challenging part. But and it's so awesome to hear that Vampyrates #1 worked for you on that level, because it's probably the single toughest thing in any story, even if it's a brand new world like Vampyrates, even if you're doing a Marvel DC book. You don't want to front load all that information and overwhelm people. Because it's just, one thing, it's just boring. There's no story, and just for another, to let people kind of follow the breadcrumbs rather than you just hand them a loaf, it is the most important thing. So you want to have people pick up on the lore by themselves, right, as opposed to a narrator or some dumb expositional scene, to tell it for you. Like I remember trying to read like Asimov's Foundation, which is this science fiction series that lots of people love. But I picked it up as a kid, and the first page they're talking about how their spaceship works. Like that's just not how people live. Like you and I get in the car, we're all like, "Is that a combustion engine, Bob?" "Why, yes, it is, Bill." Basically, there's fossil fuels called gas. Like, shut up! Like I don't even know that. So yeah, so the art of doling out the world building at what rate and by whom and by what, in a way that engages the reader of the story, that's even harder than coming up with the world building yourself.
Yeah. And I guess because I am, well, before I even say that, do we have like a roadmap? Is this an ongoing series? Is there an end in sight?
We definitely have 5 issues.
Okay.
Hopefully more. But yeah, this is essentially the first season. I'd say is the way to call it.
Nice. So yeah, I think
try to structure a first season so if they cancel you, it's still a satisfying ending for the fans. But you just want it open ended enough that if they do greenlight you, caught in the bag.
As a writer, how is that fact, the sort of, I don't know, always being aware of the series' mortality, as it were?
Yeah. I mean, unless you're doing General Hospital, I just think that, that's just something you always have to keep in your mind. Even if you're writing, one of the big 2 books, like Batman just got rebooted. X-Men feels like they reboot it every couple of years. So it's just baked in, It's the reaction readers have to your story that's sort of what makes you, untouchable.
Mm.
That really no other thing.
For sure. I think because, I'm into collected editions and stuff, I see these creators that get these long and epic runs, and then we contrast that with pretty much everything nowadays that ends in 5 or 6 issues. And it just feels like there used to be time to like dole out these stories and almost like unless you're on a creator owned book at say Image and you're willing to fund it, until oblivion, it's like we don't get that runway. And so it feels like even more of a risk, which I guess gives for even greater payoff when it's like, all right, I'm still going to drip out these details in a way that makes sense to me and serves the story, no matter when it's going to end.
I think you just want like a world that's feels lived in, right? That doesn't seem like, that people talk about things in the second hand way that you or I talk about, I don't know, our phones or sports or whatever. But I think you need to find those moments organically in the story and a way to forefront that. So, you don't necessarily need the big crawl at the beginning, although what am I saying? There is a big crawl at the beginning of Vampyrates. It's a terrible example. Do what I do, not what I say.
Well, again, trying to tread lightly in spoiler territory, right? But there is one bit of dialogue that, to me, accomplishes that, where, the sort of antagonist goes, and I can smell the sweat on your skin, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like with just that line, it's very clear that there is an upper class and a lower class, and how those, the idea of those mixing, is clearly frowned upon. And so it's like just that is enough to be like, okay, how did this world get this way? What is this sort of forbidden love story? Does anything even come of it? Because we end the issue in a completely different locale, So it's like, okay, that's, again, I'm hooked. To be very frank, y'all, this is what you get when somehow I get to record an interview after a book is on shelves, right? Like most of the time I'm getting like a few pages of a preview or less than that. And so we're talking about this sort of hypothetical book, in a very sales pitchy way. And so I'm excited to talk story, but I don't want to ruin the experience for you guys if you haven't read it. But I also just really enjoy the story. So here we are.
These things happen.
So what I'll back up a little bit and ask you, because again, you've done a lot of different types of stories before. What was sort of the impetus for this one?
Luca Pizzeri, my esteemed co-creator, we worked on a Marvel book called Weapon X, and we enjoyed it. And we met up later trying to come up with a title we should do together. And after banding some stuff about for a while, Luca just looks at me and he goes, "All I have is a title. It's Vampyrates. What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right, we have a winner." And it just kind of all came to me all at once, and from bits and pieces of other things. The video game Dishonored, the Blade movies, Captain Cronus, Vampire Hunter, and other Hammer movies. One of my first jobs as a professional writer, this is dating me a little bit, is I did a job for the Mystic Seaport Museum in Connecticut, where I did a CD-ROM game. Yes, kids, there used to be CD-ROM games set like on a tall ship, like in the 18th century, because the guy I worked for was obsessed with the Master Commander series, like End of the World and stuff. And so I knew all this nautical stuff. Like I just had learned all of these 18th century nautical terms. So, and I love history, but I immediately knew it shouldn't be set in a historical period here on Earth. I knew it should be set in an alien world. Just so, like you were saying, you kind of have to find your way, right? You have to kind of like make your way through the space, the world. And yeah, so all this stuff came about all at once. So, like, just came up with it. Lucas says took 2 days. Don't know if that's totally accurate, but it was quick.
That's interesting, because I think, you know, when I think of writers, and, you know, especially like a story like this, like where it's a creator-owned story, I kind of imagine someone in a room like, what do I want to say about the world? And then you get the message, and then it's like, all right, now what skin can I wrap this message in?
Right.
This maybe it's horror, maybe it's, you know, whatever. And then somehow, somewhere way down the line, you get the title and the character designs and so on. So the idea of like, I have this name, Vampyrates, and then working from the title, is that different from your normal process? And is that somehow more creatively inspiring?
You know, there's usually one thing that hooks you about a story, and usually it's something that the public and the reader or the audience never knows. Like, the title was definitely the hook for this one. But when I was doing the Spider-Man book, Amazing Spider-Man, with all the webheads, we were like in the conference room, we were deciding which different people's stories are going to be. I just had this vision of like a little girl on the beach. I think it was a boy at the time. The character ended up being a little girl with a sandcastle that I knew was the Sandman, because they're bringing back all the classic Spidey books. So I did this very well received book, this storyline called Kimia's Castle and Amazing Spider-Man, with Javier Pulido doing a fantastic job in the art. And it's just something that a specific idea just came from that one image. And it's always an exploration of what does that book mean to me as a writer, and what can I make that mean to you as an audience member.
Got you. Okay. So with all of that being said, right, like you have the idea, you have the title, you're hooked, you want to make it something. At what point does the historian in you take over, and it's like, okay, I have this some stuff just kind of from memory, from my time making CD-ROM games, which the way that just unlocked things in my memory was like, I had all the Disney interactive storybooks, and
back when everyone was copying Myst.
Yeah, I had Freddy Fish and Math Blaster. Like, this was Windows 95.
I remember Math Blaster.
Yeah, man. But yeah, but like, so like, at what point is it like, all right, I've got this vague memory of these terms, and then when does it shift to like full on almost research project nerding out? Like, ooh, I could put this in there and that in there.
Well, because I am that big of a nerd when it comes to historical fiction, I already have a lot of those books anyway. Like, so that was a short walk. Also, weirdly, the project got greenlit when I was at Baltimore Comic Con, and what's moored next to the Baltimore Convention Center, I've never told anybody this before, is I believe it's the Constellation. It's a U.S. Navy frigate with 3 masts from, you know, ye olden times. So I went on that ship and I photographed the fuck out of it. And the layout of the Vampyrate ship, which is called Abyss, is pretty much exactly the same as that ship that's in Baltimore Harbor. Just because it gave me a lot of great ideas. The berths, wow, I won't tell you, even ready yet. So that's next issue. But when you see the whole ship. But yeah, that was just a lucky break, because I just happened to be literally across the street from a tall fighting ship, so I just stole it.
That's really cool. Funny enough, I was in Wilmington this weekend. We went on a beach vacation, and I was really bummed because we didn't get to visit the battleship. It just didn't work out in the time for our vacation. I've been there, like, you know, I live in North Carolina, so like that's like one of the hallmark field trips when you're a kid. Like, I think 4th grade we go to the battleship. I've been a couple times as an adult, but just something about like being in, like, the museums are cool, aquariums are cool, but like the battleship museum is different because you're on the boat. It's like you're in the thing, and I don't know.
Where is that? Where is that in Wilmington? That's in Wilmington.
It's in Wilmington, Wilmington, North Carolina. the USS North Carolina is the ship. But yeah, it was a World War II ship, and of course they decommissioned it and turned it into a museum. It's open basically 24/7, except Christmas Eve, where it's open 12 on that day.
It's a Santa rest stop. Don't tell anyone. They've got to shut it down so no one sees them land and take off again.
Right. Santa landing in a fighter jet is amazing. But yeah, something about those immersive, like sort of historic exhibits are fun to me. But again, I'm a nerd, so here we are. But so, you going around experiencing the ship and all the things, right, kind of just keeps the juices flowing. And for whatever reason, it brought me back to, because you mentioned the Abyss, but it brought me back to kind of how the issue ends. And again, without getting too deep, I promise you guys, I could tell you everything that happens in this book and nothing would be spoiled. Like it has a satisfying beginning, middle, and end, but the end just raises a bunch of questions. And so you won't feel spoiled at all. I'll still leave out details, but you end the issue where it's like, hey, I don't know where you thought you were going, but you're here now. And, the sense of, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? Like that is what takes over as you finish this book. And I don't know, what level of practice sort of has to result in that, being able to manufacture that feeling on after a page.
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to. I mean, I appreciate it. But part of why you get into this business is because you want to replicate in others how you felt as a reader, reading the things that you loved and inspired you to get into the business. Mm-hmm. But what you figure out, unfortunately, hopefully you figure it out, some poor suckers never do, I suspect. At least, but hopefully 10 years in, you realize, oh, I'm never going to get the same effect that I had as a reader on myself because I'm not that person anymore. You know what I mean? Like the energy's totally different. Mm-hmm. So what you try to do instead is get as close as you possibly can to the book I want to read, in a way that I can convey it to you, the reader. And that's kind of, and then, oh, this would be cool. This would be cool. And if you look at the whole story sort of as a whole, you can sort of find those moments. The best cliffhangers ask questions. The most obvious one, and that's where the term comes from, obviously, is, will I keep hanging onto this cliff? Will I fall off or not? In other words, will the hero die? The answer to that cliffhanger is almost always, yes, of course the hero's not going to die. What are you talking about? He's going to be fine. So it's that's why that's kind of a cheesy cliffhanger. But what is a better cliffhanger is asking the question, wait, what? What's that? What's going on? I'm okay. Oh, wait, it ended. Oh crap, I gotta wait till the next one. That's kind of how you get it, right? It's the slot machine effect. If you played the slot machine and failed every time, no one would play them. They would just wander off. If you had a slot machine where you won every time, eventually the slot machine would run out of money, but you'd still be bored and eventually wander away. You'd run out of money at some point. What you want is a slot machine that pays off sometimes. In fact, speaking specifically of slot machines, it pay off infrequently because you want to bring them back. You want to give them just enough of a taste of that high that you keep kind of, but you don't satisfy it every time, right? That's partly what the point of the cliffhanger is that point, right, becomes extended from one issue to the other. So that's probably the toughest thing to do in serialized comics, to do that in an effective manner.
Yeah. So, I was just on a road trip, so I spent, an inordinate amount of time while the family's listening to whatever they're listening to. I got headphones on because I'm driving, and I'm listening to different interviews, and Scott Snyder recently did an interview, and he was just talking about ultimately like taking advantage of things that are unique to comics. So using the page turns, using cliffhangers, and really kind of bringing that excitement to the reader up front in a way that, you know, you may not get in streaming specifically is what was the counterpoint for him. And, you know, what I came away from that conversation with was like listening to writers or creatives talk process is interesting because when they're talking about it, you can clearly see the structure of what they're talking about, and you can see almost the formula that they're following. And I think the magic trick is somehow following a formula yet not feeling formulaic.
Yes.
How
Raymond Chandler called that the ending of your story, and it doesn't even have to be the ending. It can be every twist and turn of the story. The ending of your story has to be both surprising and inevitable. Right? It's fated to be, in other words, and he was talking specifically about mystery stories, but it's really true of any story. What he was saying is you have to fool the reader in such a way that they think if they'd been paying better attention throughout the whole story, they would have gotten it. That's the difference. That's what you have to achieve, is that level of, you got me. You know, like that's the hard part, you know. Yeah, it's really challenging and something I probably spend way too much time thinking about.
So again, I do this because, you know, writers fascinate me. But like, how do you even begin? Like I don't know. All right, so Vampyrates issue 1, right? We know we're going to start, and we're going to have to, in this issue, explain this world that we're in. We've got a very, you know, small cast of characters, and, you know, but we don't want to tell each of their life stories. So we kind of give them, you know, relative or relational position, right? All right, so I know this person means this to that person, and so on. We know there's different classes of people. We know there's a sort of warring factions. And we know that, you know, things are tense. Things are tense between all these different groups. And we know that by the end of the issue, you know, our main character, whose name is Empress Nira, we know that Nira is going to have to somehow not be on the throne and also be in a position where she's got to kind of crawl her way up to the top of a different type of ranking. So we know we have to do all that. We know how many pages we have to do all of that in. And we do that, yet there are surprises all along the way. How do you even fill that with those surprises?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's a combination. I mean, the character of Nira is super fun. I do a lot of female protagonists. I think because I got so enamored of the late great Dame Diana Rigg when she was in the Avengers. I was watching in reruns, the British Avengers. But it's a combination of just shit you think would be cool. Like we do absolutely run on the level, but you want to connect that stuff that's just purely spectacle with like emotional tissue. Otherwise, people forget about it, you know, as soon as they put the book down and walk out of the movie theater. So I've never, this was heavily influenced by a video game called Dishonored, is where a lot of this stuff comes from. In fact, I took a lot of literal ideas for a Dishonored story and I put them into Vampyrates. That's partly why I was able to turn it around so quickly to the amazing of Luca. It was because I already had the stuff in my back pocket, you know? And so that's a lot of it. You just pick stuff up. You, if you'll forgive the term, you use the whole buffalo, right? You don't leave anything to waste. You take it all with you, you know? And then you just get old. then you have this accumulation of stuff, you know, that you can just pull from, you know? That is the best part about being old, is you get the stuff back here and you've lost the fear, hopefully. Yeah, too bad. But you've lost that fear that you have when you're a younger person of that you're going to fail to achieve your goals. Once you press to a certain level, you're like, I don't care whether I achieve my goals or not. Let's just have a good time. Let's figure this out, man. You know, to be clear, I have in fact achieved some of my goals. That to come across as totally sad sack.
Listen, you've achieved them in my mind, at least. That's all. So I'll shift focus just a bit, right? Because you, of course, have given a lot of credit to Luca, rightfully so. But I think it's time to spotlight Luca Pizzari, who illustrates this book, who's the co-creator of Vampyrates and who came up with that incredible title. And one, I had not been familiar with Luca prior to this title. And I will show you guys pages 2 and 3 of the book just to get a taste of the artwork. What I like are, well, there's a lot that I like. I like the action, the dynamism, the overall character designs. But the biggest thing for me is the character designs themselves. I went back and read page 1. Well, what is this? Panel 3, page 1, like 4 times.
Okay.
Because I was convinced that the lettering was being attributed, or the word balloons were being attributed to the wrong person.
Oh no. Okay.
But they weren't. It was no.
Okay.
There was nothing wrong with it. It was that the pirate, basically, the dude says, I made myself a pirate. But the dude who made himself a pirate by doing something illegal is not the one wearing the pirate hat.
That's true. That's true.
And it threw me off. I was like, wait, no, okay, no, this one's the pirate. Wait, okay. And I think that's just for me not, reading a ton of pirate stories. But then, you get to the next page, it's like, okay, no, it has to be attributed to this guy. But it was like, even that for me, I feel like this kind of speaks to the subversive nature of the story. Like, to me, it kind of said, this story is not what you think you're getting. Like, slow down and pay attention.
Well, the crazy thing is that first 4 pages did not exist in the original script or in the original comic. The marketing guys at Boom were like, and I actually, when they said it, I was like, I get it. That makes total sense. Is they were like, you have a pirate book and there's no actual like pirate action in the first issue. And I was like, all right, then, well, that's fair. So we came with this 4-page sequence, and it really seems to have struck a nerve with people, partly because Luca crushed the artwork, partly because I think it gives background on that character you're referring to, which you didn't know which one it was. To that character's backstory, I think is very helpful as we move along in the story. So it's information I sort of talking about when I was talking about world building before. That's classic information I wanted you to have, but had no obvious way of conveying it until Boom, God bless them, let us add 4 pages to an already 22-page comic and do that prologue. And people seem to be really enjoying it, which is just awesome.
Yeah, because it's like, you're watching the 10 o'clock news and it's like, all right, now back to our regularly scheduled programming, already in progress. And, you're dropped into this world and it's like, okay, there's a war happening. Yeah. Why is there a war happening? Oh, we're in a different locale, speaking with different people. And then, we'll end up somewhere else later. But it really works as a hook. So shout out to whoever at Boom was like, hey, do this thing. Because I think the story would have been the story without it, but it definitely does add something, this prologue. And, maybe I didn't even notice the end of prologue box here.
Right. Because I didn't want it just to end, because as you were showing people, if you wouldn't mind showing it again, see that big splash, that was originally page.
Right.
But the kind of Star Wars crawl on it.
Exactly. And this is a more obvious page 1.
Yeah.
But I like that. I think I want to, when this is over, I'm going to read just from the, I guess page 5 and just see how it reads without the prologue and then go back and read the prologue.
Yeah, that's how it read forever.
Yeah, that'll be fun. This is the stuff that like is just fun about comics. Like, I guess if this were, I don't know, Titanic, I could just rewind to 20 minutes into Titanic, but that's not the same thing. It's not like, hey, let's go back to the beginning of the movie. But
difference is if you lose power, you can still read a comic.
That's true.
Unless it's night. That makes it slightly more challenging, but you'll figure it out. There's candles.
So,
fire.
So you talked about this video game, Dishonored, that served as a big inspiration. Well, I don't know if that spoils any of the story. What is Dishonored? I'm not familiar with this game.
So Dishonored is a great stealth game. It's set and other characters can teleport. That's why in Vampyrates, the only vampire power we've really given them is they can mist. They can turn into myth. Which opposed is to seeping into the boudoir they used to in their sword fighting. It's basically Dishonored is set. It's a stealth game set in a fictional, like I'd say 1870s England. Like it's a faux England, but it's a faux Victorian era. But there's magic, and there's monsters and stuff. So that was part of it, was that it was set close enough to the piracy period that I could, have that and make that all work. There's a steampunk element to it, which will become more and more obvious as Vampyrates goes along. And just the overall sort of grim look. And I had come up with some stories for Dishonored for the role-playing game. And a lot of those stories and ideas ended up as the first issue. Well, a bunch of stuff that's in the first part of Vampyrates.
Got you. Okay. Very cool. So,
and Luke played it too. So in the minute I was like Dishonored, he immediately knew what I was talking about.
Nice.
Although Dishonored 2 is better, just throwing it up.
And, while we're talking about the art, I do want to give a shout out to Adam Gazowski, who is the colorist, and Jody Troutman, who does letters. I really, really love the colors on this. Do I want to show that page? Whatever. It's the center fold page. And
very nice.
It's beautiful. The book is beautiful all throughout. But I really like the colors. It's somehow vibrant and muted.
Yes. So what Luca's secret love, growing up in Italy, he did not have a lot of like US media necessarily to interface with all that much, but what he did have was Scooby-Doo. And so a lot of that color palette is all Scooby-Doo, like cell colors. And Adam just took to it. I've worked with Adam a bunch. He colors actually Ryan Dunleavy on our Action Presidents Action Philosophers and Comic History Comics colors. So that's how I do it. He's just doing a great job on Vampyrates. He and Luca worked out the color scheme together.
Nice. So, before I get into all the salesy FOC stuff, what made Boom a great partner for this book to come out through?
They've just been really smart about the marketing stuff. Like they had this idea where they were going to get a treasure chest and fill it full of Vampyrates variants and like bury it in the beach somewhere, and people were gonna have to go out and try and find it until their lawyers are like, no, don't do that. What's wrong with you? So it'll be at the booth. So it's the kind of stuff like that. They just had a real good time, real fun time with it.
This does feel like you mentioned the booth, and I forget because I'm kind of jealous that everybody else keeps getting to go to cons and I'm stuck at home for the rest of the year. Although I'm gonna try to make an appearance in Baltimore. We're still working on Baltimore. But this just feels like, and maybe it could just be the cover, but like this just feels like just the type of thing that people just kind of go crazy for. Like it feels like something you want to hunt down, if that makes any sense, right? Like, so I'm excited that this book is hitting right in the middle of the summer, right? Like we're not quite in like spooky season and all the things, but it's at a time where it feels like it's primed to hit. So I'm very curious to see what the response is to issue 1 now that it's out. I kind of avoided it until I could read the book for myself. But I will tell you, at my shop, it did pretty well. You know, even the incentive variant was gone, of course.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I like even the very consistent like cover dress and like it's having Vampyrates right there in the middle, kind of separating the two images. Like it's just, it just works.
Luca came up with that before he even drew a single interior page, and I should shout out his lovely wife Louisa, who designed the logo.
Wow,
He's a great graphic designer. Keep it in the family.
Very cool. Yeah, that's how you make all the money. But yeah, so I'm excited to see how this goes. Like this feels like, I don't know, when it comes to like 6-issue series or 5 issues at least, right? Something like Deceased, where it's like it feels like the lore can grow with each issue, and it's like you get to a point where it's like, hey, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Wait, it's over? Nah, there's got to be more coming, right? Like I could very much see this on a similar trajectory, but that only happens if people keep buying the book. So issue 1 is already out. Issue 2 is out August 19th. And the FOC for issue 2 did just pass. It was the same weekend as the release of issue 1. But that means just in case, and this is not to imply that my podcast is just the entire pulse of the industry, because that'd be dumb. But just in case, you know, you were sleeping on this series and now you are no longer because you just saw this interview, what this means is you have a chance to go to your shop, pre-order it, right? There might be an issue 1 and an issue 2 at your local shop. You know, I'm sure there's a second printing of issue 1 coming out. I don't know if I've seen an announcement for that yet, but that's just how these things go when they sell out that quickly at retail. So issue 1, you probably have a chance to get. Issue 2 will end up being the most scarce unless the demand just triggers another printing.
Yep.
But you have a chance to impact the sales for issue 3 and guarantee a copy. And so when issue 1 comes out, issue 2 sells a little bit less, but then issue 3 sells more. Now we're cooking. And not to get, I mean, I was going to say not to get too inside baseball. That's about as inside as the baseball is going to get. So go out and buy it. Go out and pre-order this series, right?
When I was a kid, you know, one of the hardest comics to find was?
What's that?
It was Alpha Flight #2. Alpha Flight #1, for some reason, sold like, no joke, like 300,000. Like it was some ridiculous high selling book. But then the second issue sales, for whatever reason, plummeted. And then, like you said, exactly what happened was 3 was more than 2, and then it climbed steadily up after that. That's the projection.
Yeah, yeah. Vampyrates Alpha Flight. Maybe we'll get a crossover.
That's right. A to V. You've heard that famous term before. That's what it means.
Nice. So, yeah, again, Vampyrates issue 2 is out August 19th. Shout out to Fred Van Lente, who's here, Luca Pizzari, Adam Gazowski. Great creative team. A great first outing, or first issue, I should say. I thoroughly enjoyed it, to the point where I really wanted to make this episode a page-by-page breakdown, but I refrained. So,
I mean, it's been out less than a week. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Next, we're gonna go behind the music.
Trades out. That
Pop
way you're
up.
just That way we're just, spoiling the first chapter.
Oh yeah, yeah, that works for me. But Fred, dude, seriously, thank you for your time. Thank you for always coming back. Right, I really enjoy these, and I enjoy your work a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you as always.
All right, and with that, you guys can follow Fred on his socials. Of course, I will leave all the links in the description down below. Vampyrates issue 1 is out now. Issue 2 is out August 19th. Go ahead, call your local comic shop, pre-order issues 2 through infinity, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.